what the ninja does is he reverses the foot pattern. So he starts with the toe, knowing that if he encounters something, he can lift his foot and not impale himself. So what we do is we begin with the toe, then we go inch by inch with no weight. So there's no body weight. If I encounter a piece of glass, I levitate. Even when I start to transfer my weight, I do it with a roll of the hips, incrementally. So I go from 100% to 0%, I shift to now being 70-30, to now being 50-50, to now putting the 70, leaving the 30 until I'm back to 100%. And controlling the amount of weight that I press on the floor at any given time allows me to neither fall into a hole or step onto a caltrope. Okay?
My name is Emory M. Jr., and this is Exercise and Movement Techniques, and today I have the good fortune to be here with Shihan James Loriega. It is a distinct pleasure.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us. It's been a long time that I've wanted to do this. We've been hitting and missing, so finally we're on. So, first of all, I would like to talk about a little bit of your background and tell people, you know, Shihan is a martial arts title, and I'd like to discuss what your proficiency is, what arts that you are actually teaching, because we're here today at your place, and I'd love to tell people what's, you know, who is James Loriega?
Well, at this particular time and location, the Shihan has to do with my standing in the ninja arts,
Okay.
which I began in 1967 with the gentleman who introduced the ninja arts to the United States, and that was Ronald Duncan. He had already established a school a few years before I came in, but I came in fairly on, and it wasn't until another 15 or 20 years later that you heard the name ninja
Right.
in the media.
Right.
So I count myself very fortunate. And what we do here is we try to teach the ninja arts in their entirety and not necessarily focus on one element or another.
Okay.
The ninja had to be literally well-rounded, and the ninja realized that he couldn't fight his way out of everything, so he had to have other non-fighting skills in order to accomplish his missions.
So can you talk about, in a general form or a specific form, what is ninjutsu, and what does that look like when you say you're teaching it in its entirety? What are the major components of that lesson plan?
Okay, well, let's try to define ninjutsu first, because that's where a lot of the misunderstanding comes from.
Most definitely.
As Americans, we like to encapsulate everything into a soundbite, so we want to reduce everything to the art of this or the art of that. With ninjutsu, it's a little difficult because people have tried, but I think they have tried unsuccessfully. Some people have labeled a ninjutsu as the art of assassination. That is not what ninjutsu is.
Right.
People have said it's the art of deception. That's a minor component.
Okay.
The art of invisibility is closer to the fact. But the best definition of ninjutsu was coined by the martial scholar Don Draeger, who was a contemporary of my instructor. And he said ninjutsu is the art of protecting against danger. When we say that, we're not saying protect against a punch or a kick or a sword or a stick or an atom bomb. we are saying protection against anything that can prove dangerous to us. So it has to be very comprehensive.
Right.
And that is what ninjutsu is to me, and I have adopted that phraseology as what I purport to teach ninjutsu as.
I think that's the best description I've ever heard of the art, and I like that because that encompasses all the aspects of protecting oneself, understanding the environment, understanding the complexities of society. It's not necessarily, as you say, the art of assassination, which makes for quite a few very, very bad films that have made. I don't even know how they make money, but I can't even. Anything that has ninja in the title now, I don't even look at it anymore because it just gets worse and worse. So, you started training in 1967.
That's correct.
You don't look to be that old.
Thank you. It's my living the life of a clean ninja.
So, as you know, my blogs are relatively focused on education for health and fitness and trying to give people a broader perspective of the arts that are available that they can do to offer a totality of something for health and fitness, and also something that attracts the mind and the curiosity of a human being who wants to endeavor to pursue self-development and not necessarily the 6-week beach body, 6-month starve myself, fall on the floor diet. And so ninjutsu has always fascinated me in that it is so complex. Could you illuminate or express some of the aspects of it that you think are good for a human being?
Yeah, actually, I think that's an excellent observation that you make, because ninjutsu can be as simple or as complex as you want to make it. So you don't have to necessarily feel that you're going to make a life commitment to learning 36 different arts. You can take from it what you want and be happy, and you're still living a ninja lifestyle. So, at the very beginning, you have to understand the philosophy of the ninja, which not many people know, let alone understand. And that is that given any situation,
Okay.
and I'm not naming any, you have at any given time 4 options. Your first option must be to avoid. But if you can't avoid because there's just a group of people sitting on your stoop, then the next option is to evade, not necessarily confront. Now, if you can't evade them, you still don't want to engage, or you want to now deceive them, okay, because that is harmless to them and harmless to you. It is only when you cannot avoid, evade, or deceive that you have no recourse but to engage. So knowing that if you can live your life successfully with those 4 principles, God bless you, you'll never have to raise a punch, a kick, a stick, or a chain.
Right.
For those events that require it, we'll give you a fist, a kick,
Sure.
a stick, and a chain. And then you master those to the level that you feel satisfied, not the level that I feel satisfied, because I'm not going to be there when you have your situation. Okay. If you want to proceed from those 4 tenets, then we have 2 separate sets of 18 arts. The first 18 arts are your physical arts, and you will begin from your body outward. So
I was going to ask, what would the physical training look like?
Well, it would be, the first thing would be taijutsu, how to move your body. Then from your body, specifics of your legs and your hands, and then your entire body as a weapon, which is called tai-ken. Tai body, ken sword, all of you comprises one weapon. And you need to explore, how do I use my elbows, how do I use my knees, how do I use my head, and so forth. From there we extend into handheld weapons. And again, we begin with the shorter weapons like the sticks, and then the knives, and then swords, and so forth, extending the distance into projectile weapons. concurrent with those 18 arts, you want to study a second set of 18 arts that have nothing to do with weaponry or fighting, but they turn your psychology into your weapon. You want to start with spiritual refinement, okay? Because of the lethality that is included in ninjutsu, you must have a counterbalance in your morality.
Can we please talk about that a little bit, please? Because that is so refreshing to hear as a ground basis for study. Because I know you know, and I know plenty of people who, as we used to say, they would go dark. There's so much into that physical combative element that they're not the kind of people you can bring home to mom or have a discussion with anything other than combativeness. You know, they're almost antisocial in the way that they approach things because they're constantly anticipating some kind of a combative encounter. And I find that it makes for a very unbalanced human being. Not to mention, it scares most people to think that there are people who will be studying and training in arts that are potentially lethal, literally making them a living weapon, and they have no sense of morality or nothing to give them pause when it comes to actually physically hurting somebody else. So
it can be very dangerous.
But I've only heard you talk about spiritual refinement as being a requirement in this endeavor.
Yes, and it is not my projection onto the art. The art includes spiritual refinement and requires it. As a sensei, I am required to assess a student, and part of what we do with the second set of 18 arts is face read and character assess. And if I see a person coming in that I can read in his body language and in his somatotype, and in his conversation, that this is not a good fit, it is my duty not to accept this person. The second fail-safe device we have is after I accept him because I deem him worthy, I must inculcate within him that spiritual refinement so that I don't monitor him, he monitors him.
Monitors himself.
Absolutely, because I'm not living with him, nor do I want to.
Right.
And I want to be with some sense of peace of mind when he's not in my sight, that he's still doing the right thing. Both in the Eastern and the Western traditions, we have people who have written that before you master anyone, you must master yourself.
Most definitely.
That is my first lesson to my students, because I want to master the gun, I want to master kicks. No, master your desires, master your intentions, master your goals and your objectives, and everything else will follow.
Well, there are consequences for doing violent actions to people that don't seem to be brought into the forefront. Every time you see a movie or a game, which disturbs me even more because basically it's a way of engendering into the children, it lowers their threshold for violence. We know that the root of the violent video game came from warfare. It came from the indoctrination of the soldier to lower their threshold to actually taking a human life. And so I find it disturbing, the proliferation of the exclusively violent martial arts, which has no philosophy for living whatsoever. And we were discussing earlier about, but what if you have a sunny day? What if you have a lovely day? What if you have a lovely life? Are you prepared to live that life? And I'm glad to hear that one of the tenets in this system seems to be preparing people to do just that.
Absolutely. And the other thing that is missing is something you already mentioned, is this sense of consequence and karma. A lot of martial artists in ninjutsu and outside of ninjutsu wrongly believe that they can pick and choose what they want to study in the art and neglect the rest. A lot of people will opt not to follow the Buddhist teachings that go with the Asian arts. We don't let that become an option here. You have to have the left hand and the right hand. You have to develop the mind and the spirit as you develop the body. Otherwise, you're just a shell, and I don't have any use for shells. I want thinking individuals who can exercise critical thinking, and they're not going to call me on their cell phone to ask if they should deliver a finishing blow or let the person walk away. That's not my call, that's their call, but it has to be the right call.
Sure.
I think that when we arm people, in addition to 18 combat arts, with 18 psychological and spiritual arts, they have 36 options to deal with the conflict. They have 18 for hand-to-hand, and that they have 18 arts by which they can avoid the conflict. And they know that they'd rather avoid the conflict than to have to use their skills.
Right.
And so...
Well, that is a skill.
Well, there is a skill, it's not a physical skill.
Right.
It's not a physical skill. And this is why we're very different in that I teach them Asian face reading. It's called Ninso. And every samurai and every ninja had this as part of their culture. It is now lost because Ninso and face reading was tied into Oriental medicine. And since we now adhere to Western medicine, we don't need to know about moxibustion, herbology,
Sure.
acupuncture, and face reading, which is how a Chinese doctor and a Japanese doctor will diagnose you. Okay, in addition to that...
Which takes a very, very long time.
It does, but as do all martial arts if you're going to master them. Okay?
Right, and be able to render an accurate diagnosis. Because from my understanding, traditional Chinese medicine, 20 years it took before people were really considered to be proficient. And a lot of that had to do with their developing and honing a diagnostic ability, because obviously your treatment is only as good as your ability to accurately diagnose what it is that the person ails from. And furthermore, what I find interesting about what you're talking about is character. You're talking about assessing a person's character and caring to assess a person's character, because if you're only engaged in violent pursuits, then you're really half a person at best. And as they always said, right, people who live by the gun, they die by the gun, who live by the sword, they die by the sword. And why would we want to develop a society where people are dying violently by design? You know, why would I want to engage in a pursuit where the end result probably is going to be me getting stabbed or shot by design, because I've decided to live a violent life and had a violent expression, as you say, karmically, consequently, if you do things, you're going to have to pay for them. And we have laws. You know, we're living in a lawless society where you can just do things to people and everything is fine. And even if nobody's looking, there's going to be consequences, I believe, from heaven.
Absolutely. Just from your own conscience. So, we've all heard it, and it sounds like a fortune cookie, but it's not. We let the student know it's easy to kill. What's harder is to learn to heal, and so you must learn them alternately. We can't just focus on one side. And there are a lot of teachings that I withhold until people reach their 3rd degree black belt, which is the milestone for becoming a sensei. Not every black belt is a sensei. A black belt is someone who is now embarked on the path. And that gives me ample time to know whether this person is worthy of my sharing this with them or not. Sure, they can kick, they can break boards, they can jump up. The fact that anyone can do that. But the inner secrets that the ninja had are not for everyone, and rightly so.
Right.
We're going to work purely on leverage and nothing martially. So let's do the first one here. We'll do this one a couple of times. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically lever the knife out of him. Okay.
So you're going to use leverage.
I'm going to use leverage, but mostly it's only going to work if I'm relaxed.
Okay.
So he's going to come in with a nice thrust. I do that with one hand.
So you're using your body's position to essentially disarm.
No, I'm using, and I'll break it down, I'm using my orientation to the knife and the blade. So let's do it from here. At all times, I'm staying away from the edge.
Mm.
So we have an edge, we have a spine. Let's do it from this side. We do that from above. Catch it now.
Mm. Thank you so much.
Okay, so now that's relaxation because at high speed I'll drop the knife like he drops the knife.
And what is the rope called again? I'm sorry.
Shinobi Nawa.
Shinobi Nawa.
Yeah, so Nawa is rope and it's a stealth rope. It's a Shinobi Nawa. You size it to your personal preference. It could be as short as from your hand to the ground, or it can be double that.
I see.
Depending on the amount of physicality that you plan to use it. So what we do is, after we fold it in two, we get to the quarter point, and we take that quarter point, and we slip it up underneath the obi.
I see.
So that it's there. At that point, we take only this loop, and we do what's known as a highwayman's knot. And so we can jump aboard, we can do any kind of climbing, rolling, fighting, it won't leave us.
Mm.
And then when I need to extract it really quick, I give it a sharp tug on the two ends, and it's ready for combat. Alternatively, we would wear it underneath the tunic, and rather than looking for it and finding the rope, we simply go to the back of the collar.
Nice.
And it presents. So we begin by understanding the various directions that the rope can travel in. So initially, we have Tenchi, heaven to earth, and that would be heaven to earth. If we reverse the direction, we have Chitan, earth to heaven. If we go overhead, that would be Yoko,